2025 was supposed to be the year AI revolutionized marketing, right? That's what all the LinkedIn gurus told us. That's what every SaaS company promised, automate everything, generate content at scale, fire your copywriters, and you know what actually happened? Everybody started putting out the exact same soulless garbage. Literally the same. Same blog post structure, same email sequences, same ad copy. You know why? Because they're all using the same 3 AI tools with the same prompts they found in the same $4,000 course from the same guru who's never actually run a profitable campaign. And now that we're in 2026 and the dust has settled, sort of, these same people are weirdly quiet about about their AI revolution. Funny how that works. So let me tell you what really happened, because nobody else is going to say it. So I've been doing this for 25 years and I've seen every single trend come through. SEO was going to kill traditional advertising. Social media was going to kill everything. Influencer marketing was the future. Growth hacking was going to replace strategy. And now AI is supposed to replace what? Human thinking? Well, here's the thing that pisses me off, and really gets to me. These AI marketing tool companies, they sold small business owners a lie, a very, very expensive lie. They would tell you things like, you don't need an agency anymore. You don't need copywriters. Just use our tool. $300 a month, $500 a month. Some of these enterprise tools, charging $2,000 a month or more. And you know what you get? Templates, glorified Mad Libs. A client came to me last quarter, and said, they spent 7 months using one of these AI content platforms. The ones that are all over your LinkedIn feed promising, 10x your content output. This client generated 340 pieces of content, blog posts, social media posts, email campaigns, landing pages, 340 pieces. You want to know what their traffic did? Nothing. Conversions, down 23%. Down. Because here's what these AI snake oil salesmen don't tell you. Google's algorithm, and more importantly, your actual human customers, they can smell generic AI content from a mile away. It's like there's this uncanny valley thing happening where everybody just sounds polished enough to be professional, but hollow enough that nobody gives a shit. And the worst part is watching marketers who should know better, like people who've been in this industry for years, watching them convince themselves that this is all fine. Oh, well, we're just using AI as a starting point and then we'll refine it. Really? Because I've seen your blog. You didn't refine anything. You published exactly what ChatGPT gave you, and it reads like every other blog post in your industry because everybody's doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Like, we've created this situation where AI was supposed to be this democratizing force, right? Now everybody can create content. But what actually happened is we've democratized mediocrity. Everybody can create mediocre content now. Congratulations. And the agencies, oh man, these big agencies, they love this. You know why? Because they can bill the same hours while having junior staff just prompt AI tools. And I'm talking about these, holding companies, your WPPs, your publicist groups. They're laying off experienced creatives by the thousands. You've seen the numbers in 2025. Thousands of people, while simultaneously launching AI-powered creative services and charging the same premiums. They're literally replacing human thinking with machine templates and keeping the same price tag. That's not innovation, that's a scam dressed up in buzzwords. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is what, nobody's talking about because everybody's so busy either hyping AI or completely dismissing it. See, there's this middle ground that actually works, but it requires you to think, which I know, shocking concept in 2026. AI is really good at specific narrow tasks, like really good at that. You need to analyze, 50,000 customer reviews to find, sentiment patterns. Freaking perfect for AI. If you need to test like 47 different headline variations, great use case. You need to transcribe hours of customer interviews so you can find the actual language your customers use. Perfect. You know what AI is terrible at? Strategy. Understanding your actual customer, knowing when to break the rules, creating something that makes people feel something. I was looking at this campaign, I won't say who it's for, but big consumer brand, you'd recognize it. They generated their entire Q4 campaign using AI. Every asset, every piece of copy, and you could tell, not just me, but like regular people could tell. The engagement rate was something like 1/3 of their previous campaign, 1/3, but the agency that did it, they're out there on LinkedIn now posting about their innovative AI first approach. They're probably submitting to award shows. And this is what kills me about the industry right now. We've got this massive gap between what people are claiming about AI and what's actually working. The gurus are selling courses, $5,000 courses, $7,000 courses, on AI marketing mastery. Most of these people have never run a marketing department. They've never been responsible for actual business results. They figured out how to prompt engineer ChatGPT, and now they're experts, right? Meanwhile, you've got real businesses, small businesses, entrepreneurs who are trying to compete, and they're reading all of this stuff online telling them that they're getting left behind if they don't go all in on AI. So they panic. They subscribe to 14 different tools. They start pumping out content 7 days a week. And 6 months later, they're wondering why nothing's working and they've spent 15 grand on software. So let me tell you what's actually working right now, because I'm looking at real data from real clients who are getting real results. The businesses that are winning are using AI tactically, not strategically. They're using it for the grunt work, data analysis, image resizing, transcription, initial research, and then they're having an actual human do the thinking part. That is strategy. That's positioning, the emotional resonance, the parts that require you to understand that your customer is a human being with specific problems and desires and fears. Like, we have a client, this B2B SaaS company. They use AI to analyze sales call transcripts and, pull out objections and pain points. That's perfect, because you'd need to hire somebody to listen to 100 hours of calls otherwise. But then, and this is the key, then we have actual strategists use that information to build messaging that speaks to those specific objections in a human way, with nuance, with personality, with an actual point of view. The AI doesn't have a point of view. It can't. It's a pattern matching machine. It regurgitates the average of everything it's been trained on, and the average is, by definition, mediocre. You know what else is working? Using AI to make human creation faster, not to replace it. Like, our creative team uses AI for mockups, for variations, for removing backgrounds from images, for cleaning up, audio, things that used to take 3 hours now take 30 minutes, sometimes even less. And you know what they do with those extra 2.5 hours? They think, they strategize, they come up with actual creative ideas. But here's what's not working, and I need to really be clear about this, because there's still so many people doing it. Using AI to generate your core content, your voice, your positioning, your strategy, that's not working. It might look like it's working for a quarter because you're putting out a lot of stuff, but long-term, you're invisible. You sound like everybody else. Your brand has no personality. Your customers can't tell you apart from your competitors. And the thing that really gets me, I've been ranting for a while here, but the thing that really bothers me is watching these AI marketing companies prey on people's fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of not being productive enough, fear of not posting enough. So they sell you a tool that lets you post 50 times a day across 12 platforms, and you know what happens? You annoy everybody. You waste your time. You get zero actual business results. I saw this study, I think it was from Gartner or Forrester, one of those research companies. They found that companies that went all in on AI content generation in 2025 actually saw lower engagement rates than companies that didn't. Lower. That's because people are exhausted. They're exhausted by the avalanche, the avalanche of content. They can sense when something is generated versus when something is actually from a human who has something real to say. So, you know what people want? They want to feel understood. They want to feel like you get their specific problem. They want personality. They want opinion. They want something that doesn't sound like it could have come from literally any company in your industry. And AI can't give you that. It's a tool. It's a really good tool for certain things, but it's still a tool. You wouldn't let your hammer decide what to build, would you? So why are you letting AI decide your marketing strategy? Here's what I tell clients now. If you can replace your entire marketing approach with AI and it works just as well, you never had a strategy to begin with. You just had templates. And if that's the case, AI probably can replace you. But that's not AI's fault, that's yours. For never developing an actual point of view. The marketers who are going to win in the next 5 years, they're the ones who understand that AI is a tool that amplifies human thinking, not replaces it. They use it to work faster, to test more things, to analyze more data. But the core, the strategy, the positioning, the emotional intelligence, that's still human. That has to be human, because here's the reality that nobody in the AI hype cycle wants to admit. Marketing is about human connection. It's about understanding people. It's about building trust. And you can't automate trust. You can't prompt engineer genuine connection. You can't use a template to make somebody care about your brand. I've been in too many meetings with potential clients who've been burned by this stuff. They've spent a year using AI tools, following the guru advice, posting constantly, and they got nothing. And now they're cynical. They're wondering if marketing even works. And I have to explain to them that marketing absolutely works, but what they were doing wasn't marketing, it was content generation, and those are not the same thing. The irony here, is that companies making the most money from the AI marketing revolution aren't the businesses using AI to market themselves. It's the AI tool companies and the gurus selling the courses about the AI tool companies. It's the same pattern we've seen with every trend. The gold rush made the people selling shovels rich, not the miners. So where does that leave us? What's the actual takeaway here after the hype has died down and we can look at this clearly? Here's what it is. AI is useful. It's legitimately useful for specific tasks, but it's not magic. It's not going to solve your marketing problems if you don't have a solid foundation. It's not going to replace human creativity and strategy. And anybody selling you that vision is either lying or delusional. The businesses crushing it right now are the ones who never bought the hype in the first place. They saw AI as a productivity tool, not as a replacement for thinking. They used it to do the boring stuff faster so they could spend more time on strategy and creativity and actually understanding their customers. And if you got caught up in the AI frenzy in 2025, if you spent money on tools that didn't work, if you, generated 1,000 pieces of content that, probably nobody read, well, hey, you're not alone. Don't feel bad. The entire industry was pushing that narrative, but now you know better. You can make better decisions now that you know what has happened. Use AI where it makes sense. Automate the automatable, but don't automate your thinking. Don't automate strategy. Don't automate the parts of marketing that actually matter. The human parts, because at the end of the day, you're not marketing to algorithms, you're marketing to people, and people can tell when you actually care versus when you're running a template. And if you've been burned by agencies promising, AI-powered results or gurus selling AI marketing courses, or tools that didn't deliver, yeah, you're in good company. There's a reason 90% of our clients come from referrals after being screwed over by exactly this kind of thing. The rebellion isn't about rejecting AI. It's about rejecting the bullshit. It's about using tools intelligently instead of letting tools use you. So it's about actual strategy instead of just content volume. It's about human connection instead of algorithmic optimization. That's what actually works. That's what has always worked. The tools change, but the fundamentals don't. Human to human, strategy before tactics, quality over quantity, and never, ever let somebody sell you a shortcut that sounds too good to be true, because it is.